Jacques Derrida is a French philosopher, and he died in 2005. And he's the one who has advocated deconstruction. And deconstruction is as a method, as a philosophical method, uh, is something which has evolved out of dialectics and dialogue also. So there is a logic which uh, Derrida has used. That logic is known as the logic of différent, a terminology which was prevalent in the French culture, and now Derrida has made use of it in a very substantive manner. Now, what happens that différent is made up of two terms: to differ and to defer. Whenever we are trying to read a particular text, and a text according to Derrida could be anything. Even a classroom is a text, a market is a text, a cinema could be a text. So text is something which is open-ended, and it is found everywhere in everything. And so when we are reading a particular text, there are certain meanings which we identify. There are certain meanings with which we differentiate it, but there are certain meanings which we have postponed. That means deferred. It has been deferred for a, you know, for the time to come. Let me just give an example of it. Like family. If we look at the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, then it defines family as a household of slaves. That means it was the stage of slavery when family had come into existence. And there are the head of the family is the master, his wife and children. They were known as you know slaves, but the relationship is something where we find husband wife relationship. Marriage is there, family is there. That's why it is called family. But when society started developing and we come to the feudal stage, and there the joint family or the extended family started coming up, and in that case we find that you know uh, so many relationships, they all live together. So it's no longer the slave owning society kind of a family. It is now a joint family, extended family, because you need many people to help you to work in the field. So you have it. Further, when the society developed and we come to capitalist stage, then here we find that husband, wife, and their unmarried children is what the family is. Nuclear family concept. Or there may be a single family concept. A person who is bachelor, if you ask him that what about your family, he or she will say that I'm the family. Single family concept. This is all around us. We all know about it. But there are some kind of families like the lesbians or the gays, the homosexuals, and you know, our society has not yet evolved to that extent that those people have the place in the society. In some countries, they are having it. In certain societies, it is there. And as a matter of fact, in the society, it has always been there. But this has been postponed, deferred. And when the time comes for it, then maybe we can think of it. Humanity will think of it. But as of now, it has been postponed. So we find that we can identify certain issues, we can differentiate it, and also we can defer certain concepts. Now it is this process of deferring it, postponing it, that when the time for that idea comes, then nobody can stop it. It is in this context that Derrida says that Deconstruction is a revenge of language in philosophy. That means the language takes a revenge in in the society. The language takes revenge because the language or the concept has been postponed for a long time, and now one has to take, cognizance of that language, and for that purpose one has to accept the reality. So for Derrida, the text, which, as I have said, that text is everything around us, that text contains layers of meanings, and those meanings have undergone several changes in the cultural and the historical developments processes, and in which certain meanings are identified, differentiated with other meanings, and there are certain meanings which have been postponed. And that which has been postponed, there is a time when that concept comes back, and then it has to be entertained. It is this kind of a complex phenomenon which is there. One thing which is very important here is that there, in this articulation, there is a dialectical insight also. If we look at uh, Aristotle, Aristotle had thought about identity and difference, and had put them together, separately. That two contradictory things cannot be true at the same time and at the same place. They may be true at different times at different places. This is how Aristotle thought about it. Until Kant, people thought like this. Hegel is the one who thought that no, identity and differences are entertained together. Identity is identical within differences. So this became a kind of a new way of looking at reality, and it goes to the credit of Hegel's dialectics that he gave us this kind of an insight. But when we come to Derrida, he moves one step forward to what Hegel has done, because he says that there are many issues which have been deferred, not just differentiated, but deferred. The time for those ideas has come, and now the language has to take its revenge. You have to entertain those issues. So, entertaining the different aspect becomes a very substantive contribution. That's why the method of deconstruction works with the operative terms of different, and meaning both to differ and to defer. This is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that, you know, in the deconstruction, we find that there is a critique of grand narratives. Grand narrative is one of the fundamental features of German idealism. In fact, in German idealism, we find Enlightenment rationality as a grand narrative. Immanuel Kant in 1783, he wrote a small pamphlet, answer to the question, what is enlightenment? And in that small article, he had developed certain concepts which became the defining feature of the whole world. Those concepts were like human rights issues are there, freedom, autonomy, dignity, toleration. Religion should go to the private sphere, not the public. Public use of reason should be there in the public sphere. Scientific rationality has to prevail over everything. Secularism, secularization has to come. These are the 8, 9 concepts which have been introduced in that article, and this became the identity of Europe. If somebody asks me what is Europe, then I can say that Europe is a normative phenomenon, and these are the norms like democracy, secularization or secularism, human rights, and justice, toleration, autonomy, freedom, sovereignty. These are the fundamental concepts. which are there substantially, humanism, etc. And when European mode of production started moving to Asia, Africa, and Latin America, then with that, these ideas also started coming up. In India, it came up very substantially, and most of the intellectuals of the time, from Raja Ram Mohan Rai to Sri Aurobindo, they were all trying to understand everything on the basis of these ideas. And uh, secularization, democracy, etc., these concepts started coming up. So, in a way, we can say that Europe was an imagination of the whole world. Even today, if you ask me that what is USA, then I will say that all the four pillars of the White House were constructed in Europe only. The pillars of like justice, of freedom, of democracy, of human rights. These are European concepts on the basis of which USA was conceived. And even in our constitution also, most of such ideas have been enshrined and developed. So that's why it is known as a grand narrative. This was the first grand narrative. The second grand narrative was Hegel's panlogism, because for Hegel, logic is operating everywhere in nature, in society, and in human thinking, in the history, in culture, even in the religions. Everywhere he found that dialectics is operating. There is nothing which is free from dialectics. This is the second grand narrative. And the third grand narrative is what we have in Marx. Workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. This is another very important grand narrative which is there in Marxism. Now, Jacques Derrida has proposed a critique of all grand narratives, and he has given sufficient arguments with his method of deconstruction that it can be finally deconstructed. Here are all the three grand narratives of the time. So far as the first grand narrative is concerned, and it was in fact repudiated by Marx also, because Marx was a critique of Enlightenment rationality and utilitarianism and all kinds of bourgeois ideologies. So because it's all based on property, the whole Enlightenment project was based on property. That you must have your personal property or private property, and that you can accumulate as much wealth as you like, because it's only on the property that your freedom, your autonomy, your dignity, and everything else is based. So those who have the property, they have all the rights. Those who do not have it, they have no rights. And Marx is the one who thought that property is the root cause of all alienation in the society. So he was trying to repudiate this kind of position, and there is a huge, massive criticism of it. As far Hegel's dialectics is concerned, Marx has also criticized it, because Hegel thought that his dialectics is the final one, and Prussian state is the final society of human development. But Marx said that look, in the Prussian society, there is alienation, there is subjugation. And so far as contradiction prevails, you cannot say that this is the final stage of the society. So he criticized it. Derrida also had a lot of apprehensions to the grand narratives, because the grand narratives were, you know, the first reason was that they are totalitarian, that they want to capture everything and give a totalitarian picture of the reality. And Derrida was opposed to any kind of totalitarian thinking. His contention was that in the history you cannot understand everything. And if the Enlightenment project says that they will give emancipation to the whole of humanity, and that Enlightenment project is based on the development science and technology, and only 30% of the people on the earth during that time had full access to science and technology, then how can you claim that you can give liberation to everybody? It's a contradiction in terms. So Derrida proposed, you diverse reality follows diverse models, and those models are rich in conflict. And we have local struggles, we have subalterns, we have minorities, we have tribals, we have the struggle of the people who are displaced, and there are people who are suffering from Holocaust, and there is very little and almost nil narrative of these people. As far deconstruction is concerned, I would like to give some idea about it, and particularly Derrida's book like uh, of Grammatology, which was translated by Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak during late 60s, and then his book like Positions, and another book Writing and Difference. So these are a couple of books where we find that it has been substantially developed, deconstruction. Though Derrida himself says that uh, uh, he does not consider uh, this deconstruction as some kind of method or a theory or having certain principles, because as a postmodern philosopher he was against he was trying to defy all definitions, and this is what postmodernity means, that you do not stick to any kind of strict definition of it. In fact, between modernity and postmodernity, the difference is that of the method only. Modernist inscriptions, writings, and compositions are full of grand narratives. There is a huge like dialectics and other things which have been used. But in the postmodern, we find a diversity of uh, methods which have been used by the people. So there is a post-structuralist approach is there, deconstruction is there, then psychoanalysts have a different approach, neo-Marxists will have yet another approach. So diversity of approaches are there because reality for them is very diverse and full of contradictions. So Derrida says that in his book Positions, that deconstruction is not a theory, not a position, not a critique, not a technique, and it cannot even be made like this. But then he says in the grammatology, a sowing that does not produce plants. Sometimes it happens that when farmers are cultivating the land, and when the land is cultivated properly and they are going to sow the seeds, then you find that some seeds are spilled up. So they do not go deep inside the uh, soil and sprout and become a plant. So deconstruction is that kind of a phenomenon. It is an approach of dismantling. Deconstruction is not construction. It is also not destruction. So it is some kind of an approach to dismantle and rearrange everything in a different manner. So it is a sowing that does not produce plants, but is simply infinitely repeated. A semination that is not insemination but dissemination. Seed is spilled in vain, in emission, and cannot return to its origin in the father. What is so important about deconstruction is that it transcends the binary oppositions like truth and falsehood, reality and appearance. So these are the binary oppositions, good and evil. And deconstruction works the realm between them. So it does not recognize any kind of binaries. So, and it dismantles the conceptual oppositions. And in the final analysis, dissemination means nothing and it cannot be reassembled into a definition. That means, you know, this method, this procedure which Derrida has adopted is something which cannot be defined. Earlier in modernity, everything was defined, and you are a modernist provided you are in a position to define it. But here, we do not have this kind of a thing. So here he has used the term differa, of which I have been referring to, and in his book Positions, he tried to illustrate it like this, that differa refers to the active and passive movement that consists in deferring by means of a delay, delegation, reprieve, referral, detour, postponement, reserving. So many, languages. He was very fond of using so many languages. I had the opportunity to meet him 2, 3 times, and I find that his writings are complex, difficult to understand. He writes in a complex manner, difficult way. But when he speaks, it's all very simple, very lucid kind of a thing. So, uh, in this sense, Defera is not preceded by originality and invisible unity of the present, possibility that could reverse like an expenditure that I could put up calculatedly or for the reasons of economy. What differs presence, on the contrary, is the very basis on which presence is announced or desired in what represents it, its sign, its trace, in various ways. What he is simply trying to say is that when we defer certain things, that means just like putting up money in the bank and saying that we will make use of it later on. So it is that kind of, calculated way of postponing certain things. These are some of the very fundamental issues which have been substantially there in his writings. And I can sum up it in this way, that for Derrida, deconstruction accepts the horizontal character of dialectics, but it rejects the finality aspect, because in deconstruction there is nothing which is final. There are struggles, and much more, and still more, but there is no final struggle. So, in that sense, deconstruction is something which is anti foundational in nature, it is anti essentialist and anti teleology. So, in dialectics, we have the horizontal and the teleological aspects. The teleology has been rejected by Derrida, but the horizontal reality, that contradictions and overcoming of the contradictions, that has been accepted, by him, and that is something which is very important aspect of it. And whatever has been at the center of European modernity in terms of consciousness, matter, categories, etc., that has been regarded as something which is at the margins in the postmodern philosophy, because Derrida belongs to that group of postmodern thinkers. And postmodernity, as Jean-Francois Lyotard has said, is something which is a rewriting of modernity. If we read the modernist inscriptions, we will find that there are many issues in that which are at the you know uh, uh, at the center of it and also at the margins of it. For instance, if we read Descartes' book Discourse on Method and the Meditations, we will find that cogito, matter, truth, existence of God, primary and secondary qualities, these are the central issues. But then there are certain issues like madness, fantasy, demon, sin, deception, which are very marginal issues, which have been mentioned in his writings. But he has not philosophized these issues. The postmoderns have made an effort in the direction of philosophizing these issues. That's why postmodernity becomes a rewriting of modernity. But in the attempt to rewrite modernity, again, the, the perspective of the philosophical method has changed and vindicated in a different manner. Thank you very much.